Hello, it's Simon Zutshi here, and in this video I'd like to explain how you can pay off your home mortgage in 8 to 10 years, but maybe not the way you'd normally do it. Now let's consider if you own a property and there's some equity there. Let's say property's worth £200,000 and you've got a mortgage of £50,000. Okay? Now what most people would do, they'll work really hard, they'll have a repayment mortgage, and the idea is that in a few years' time, maybe 10 years' time, the mortgage might be paid off. Now in the UK, most house prices double every 7 to 9 years. That doesn't happen every 7 years, that's an average, but on average, every 7 to 9 years, prices double. But let's be really conservative. Let's say it takes 10 years for your property to double. So in 10 years' time, the property might be worth £400,000. And in 10 years' time, maybe you've paid off your mortgage in full. What that means is you've got a house with £400,000 of equity. Fantastic. There's a slight problem though. If you wanted to move to a similar size house in a similar area, it's also going to cost you £400,000 because everything else will have gone up in value. So although you've got a valuable asset, in real terms, you've got this valuable asset, but no cash. So what most people do, they have to sell the big house, downscale to a smaller one or go to a cheaper area to release some money to live on. But wouldn't it be great if you could pay off your mortgage and have some cash flow as well? So let me explain how that might happen. So let's assume in this particular property you've got some equity. That's £150,000 of equity. Now you may not have any equity at all, but what I want you to do is understand this principle, and then at the end I'll explain how you can apply it for yourself, no matter how much equity you've got or haven't got. In this case though, we'll assume there's £150,000. So what we could do, this is your own home mortgage, and remember, if you're only ever going to have one house, the best thing you do is pay off your mortgage as quickly as possible. But if you're an investor, we're going to do something slightly different. So we're going to increase the borrowing from £50,000 up to £150,000. That means you've got £100,000 which we can release. And this £100,000, you could use that to go and buy one investment property, rent that property out. And over time, this property is going to go from 100 to 200,000. And that's what a lot of people do when they're investing in property. But it's not the best strategy. The best strategy is to use the money you have and split that so you can buy as many investment properties as possible. So this £100,000 we could split into 4 chunks of £25,000 like this. Now, when you're buying an investment property, you need to put in a deposit, typically 25%, and then get a 75% buy-to-let mortgage. So in this case, we put 25,000 in, we'd get £75,000 mortgage. That would give us a £100,000 investment property. And you do that 4 times. So what this means is we end up with 4 buy-to-let mortgages at £75,000 each, okay, which is £300,000 of mortgages, and 4 investment properties at £100,000 each, which is £400,000 of property. Now, if you do this correctly, the money you take out of your own home is going to cost you some interest each month. But if you buy the right kind of properties, each of these properties will not only cover the buy-to-let mortgage, but also give you enough cash to cover the borrowing on your own home. So if you do this correctly, it needn't cost you a penny. It's just a bit of time and effort buying these 4 properties. So why on earth would you do that? Well, remember in about 10 years' time, property prices could double. That means your own home has doubled in value, but then also so have each of the investment properties. So they will have gone from about 100,000 up to 200,000 in value. 4 of those means that your investment portfolio will be worth £800,000. That'd be pretty good. And you'll have your own house still worth 400. But remember, you've got this mortgage on your own home of 150. And I said I wanted to show you how you could pay off your mortgage in 8 to 10 years. So here's how you do it. If you've got a mortgage on your investment properties, 4 times 75, total borrowing is 300,000. And yet, in 10 years' time, the portfolio could be worth 800,000. So that's £500,000 of equity. So what most investors do is they will remortgage these investment properties. And if you increased your borrowing up to, say, £450,000, which means you still have £350,000 of equity, that would give you £150,000, which you could take to then pay off your own home mortgage in full. So what this means is you'll end up with your own house completely paid off, worth £400,000, 4 investment properties rented out, giving you cash flow, still with £350,000 of equity. Even better than that, hopefully you're going to be around a bit longer than 10 years. So in the next 10 years, what's going to happen to the value of these properties? Well, they'll go up again. They might go up to, say, 400 each. And if you have 4 of them, that means you're going to have £1.6 million of property. There are going to be some mortgages, in this case, 450,000. But what that means is you've got over £1 million of equity for just buying 4 houses. Now you need to educate yourself, make sure you buy the right houses in the right area so you can easily rent them out and make great cash flow on them. But how long would it take you to save £1 million? Do most people do that in a lifetime? No. Whereas just by using some of your assets, you can buy 4 properties, and in the long term, that's probably what's going to happen. So what if you don't have this money to invest? Well, the great way to invest is using other people's money. Maybe you've got family or friends who have got this kind of equity and they want to have a bit of a pension, but they don't know how to do it. So if you educate yourself, you could be the person finding these properties, looking after these and doing some sort of joint venture deal on the revenue that comes out. Maybe you've got some inheritance that's going to come to you. Maybe you've got some redundancy money. Maybe you've got some profits in your business. All of these are sources of finance. You see, when I speak to investors, very often they say, oh, I haven't got money. Well, you know what? Successful investors don't use their money. They use other people's money. And if you borrow money and get leverage on it and know what you're doing, you can really become very, very wealthy. So that's all I wanted to share with you today.